Well, Iowa has certified the vote, declaring you all but elected. I mean, do you consider yourself the elected Congresswoman for southeastern Iowa?
Yes, I consider myself the Congresswoman-elect, but we do realize that there are other political partisan processes that may take place. But nonetheless, we have to be proactive in trying to make sure that people in eastern and southern Iowa know that they have a representative, and are in the process of looking at where to put district offices so people have the availability, the accessibility, and the knowledge of where to go to seek help should they need to reach their member of Congress. So I'm looking forward to being sworn in on January 3rd, but at the same point in time, we are continue to prepare for a process should Rita Hart officially file a petition with the House Committee on Administration.
And that is what seems to be what's going to happen, which would mean that it would be thrown into the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives. What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's extremely disappointing that they would override and dismiss the Iowa court system, the judicial system here in our state. I have faith in the election process. We have election laws. If you don't like the election laws, you can, legislatively change those. Rita Hart never determined to do that, and I was ahead in the vote count on the election night. After the 24 county canvass and audit, I was ahead, and then I was ahead after her recount. There's plenty of time to do whatever recount that she thought needed to be done. And at this point in time, I've been certified by the state, as you said, and that was a bipartisan 5-member executive council that unanimously signed off giving me this certificate of election. And I think it's disappointing that you don't have faith in your own state and the voters of your state. She numerous times said that she would listen to the voters, but I find that this is tone deaf when it comes to what Iowans want and who they voted for. Never should a process by a political body such as Nancy Pelosi and a Maryland Democrat override the intention of voters. This disenfranchises hundreds of thousands of Iowa voters.
Rita Hart says she's also going to be attending the new Congressperson's orientation, which is standard to have that orientation, as you well know, because you'll be taking part in it as well. Is that disappointing to you, as well as that she is going to be in Washington, D.C. to train to be a new Congressperson?
No, we were both in Washington, D.C. together prior to Thanksgiving for the first half of orientation. After I was certified as the winner of the election contest, she was not in Washington, D.C., or at least I did not see her in Washington, D.C. for the second half of orientation. But I do think you have to prepare. And so I think it was perfectly appropriate for her to have been at the first half of orientation. But I think now that, the recount is completed, I've been certified as the Congresswoman-elect, and winning this contest, I think we need to move on with making sure that people in eastern and southern Iowa have the representation that they deserve. And again, I think it's so dismissive of the voters of Iowa, of our all of the county auditors who worked so hard and so diligently to get us through this election cycle and through the recount, and then of our court system to just dismiss all of that and say we're going to have our representative decided by a partisan political process in Washington, D.C.
You can see that a lot of people, partisans, would say, okay, look at this. We've got a Republican who says, oh no, every vote counts because you won, with a president who is not allowing the Democrat to win. And then the opposite viewpoint where Democrats are saying, oh, wait. Do you see what I'm saying? Is that, what do you say to the Democrats who are saying, okay, now Republicans, this is an example that every vote should count?
Well, every vote should count, and every legal ballot has been counted. I have never asked nor demanded that my opponent concede while she availed herself to all the legal avenues that were available to her to petition for redress of the election. However, we've already, unlike the presidential race, we've already recounted all the ballots, and I think the president should be able to go through the same legal process and avenues that are available to him. But at the same point in time, I think President-elect Biden should be able to have information that he needs to be able to arrange to take office if that legal process fails to show any difference in what has occurred. And we also know the Electoral College also has to meet and truly declare the president. So, but my opponent is not doing that. She skipped over an Iowa process, dismissing and overriding. And basically what she wants to do is override Iowa election law and knew what the rules were when she got into this contest. She's been elected before. She also ran as a lieutenant governor running mate, so she knows what the election laws are. She knows what the rules are, but now she wants a partisan political body to change the rules and not abide by Iowa's election law or by the intent of Iowa's voters.
Oh my gosh, a 6-vote difference, some almost 400,000 votes cast. What does that say to you? What an amazingly razor-thin election.
It is a razor-thin election, but what it tells me is what we knew going into this election was that it would be a very close contest. This is a swing district. It is a purple district. And therefore, I'm going to do what I did as a state senator, and that is I'm going to treat people how I want to be treated with the golden rule. I'm going to be available, accessible, and try to meet the needs of all of the constituents of this district, just as I did in the Senate. And I think if you look at my margin of votes for the Senate race in 2018, and then the margin of votes I had in the same Senate district for this race, it was far in excess. And so I think that showed people when I was a senator that I was going to be the representative for all of them, regardless of their political party and regardless of whether they voted for me or not. And I will do the same thing in Congress.
Because you really did have respectable results when you ran in 2008, 2010, and 2014. Does those losses and then this victory mean that much more to you?
Absolutely. I think it underscores that being out there, being present, and that not letting failure define you. Failure doesn't define who you are. How your response to failure defines you. That's how we raised both of our children. We know that when things go right, or when you make a good grade in school, or you get a promotion, that builds your self-esteem and your confidence. But that losses really define your character, who you are. And it's so important to be able to develop resiliency. And we hear a lot of this. I heard it even yesterday at a Healthy Communities Forum that I participated in as a state senator. And I hope that in some small way, my trajectory is an inspiration to people to continue to try, to continue to have hope and to have faith, and never to give up, to keep fighting and fight for those things that are important to you.
Well, you do remember that in this district, Jim Leach was from Davenport and then moved to Iowa City. Dave Loebsack, Iowa City based. You are based in Ottumwa for the most part, and it's the first time in more than a generation that we've had a representative who's not from one of the major cities. Is that significant to you? I mean, does that say something to the people in far southern Iowa that you're especially proud of?
I'm especially proud of the fact that I am from just about the geographic center of the district, even though I'm not from the population center. And I think that helps people to know that I will have a focus and a voice for rural Iowa, for smaller Iowa and small town Iowa. I chose to live here when I relocated from the University of Iowa into a private practice here in Ottumwa. It is a great place to be, to live, work, and raise a family. And I certainly would want to promote all of Iowa's small towns within our 2nd Congressional District. So I do think it's significant, but I also think it highlights the fact that no matter where you live, that you can be a messenger and a voice and attentive to everybody, no matter where they are within our district. And my focus is going to be on highlighting the great opportunities we have here, continuing to grow our economy, continuing to make Iowa a safe place to live, work on things like accessible healthcare, affordable healthcare, lowering prescription drug prices, and then getting us through this pandemic and preparing for the next one. And I'll be more than happy to send out a video when I receive the vaccine for COVID-19.
Because that's really important to you. When we talked to you before the election, you were really underlining how important it is for the vaccine. So tell me, do you think among the critics is that it is being rushed, or that it may not be going through all the safety tests that it needs to have?
Absolutely not. And I think people have heard Dr. Fauci say this as well. What I think President Trump needs to be given credit, and Vice President Pence, the coronavirus task force, all of the researchers, the scientists, and the FDA, that because of the way they pre-funded vaccine development and they allowed things to happen concurrently for us to get a vaccine this rapidly, I just think is phenomenal. There were no shortcuts on safety or efficacy. As a matter of fact, this vaccine is much more effective than, for instance, our influenza vaccine. So I feel fully confident that it will be safe, that it will be effective. And as I said, I will be lining up. Of course, there are priorities, and there should be. So those that are in the healthcare field, our first responders, those that are in assisted living or residential facilities such as nursing homes, or elderly, and those people with medical conditions that put them most at risk. Those individuals need to have priority. But when my time comes, I will be more than happy to be first in line to get vaccinated.
Because a lot of people saying this is one of the biggest tests. I mean, finding the vaccine's a big deal. Getting the vaccine out there, I'm not going to say is a bigger deal, but still is also a Herculean effort. Are you confident that it's going to be prioritized appropriately? Are you happy that it's kind of the states that are doing it for the most part?
There's CDC guidance and has an algorithm for who receives the vaccine first. But let me tell you my experience as a director of the Iowa Department of Public Health. I was in that position right after the H1N1. And one of the things that I'll continue to advocate for, especially if there's another COVID-19 package, is that there is direct funding to our local public health agencies. That comes through a grant through CDC, and it's a grant for local public health agencies. And they did phenomenal work in getting the vaccine out to people for H1N1. They held drive-through clinics, if you will, for people to get vaccinated. So they're up to the task. They have knowledge, they have experience. And so, yes, I think our local public health officials, and I've never been an advocate of regionalization of our local public health. I wanted to continue to have we actually have 101, not 99 local public health agencies, but the reason for that is because of the important work they do within communities. And this really underscores the importance of these local agencies being able to continue in the manner that they do to handle outbreaks. So I have full confidence that here in Iowa, we are going to be able to disseminate the vaccine. We also have provider offices, physicians, nurse practitioners, PAs, and pharmacies that can also give vaccinations. And I think that we'll use the entire force of our healthcare community in order to get people vaccinated and do so in a timely fashion.
You mentioned that Congress is, of course, working on a COVID relief package. About $900 billion has been kind of the starting point. What do you want to see in that package? Because obviously it's still being discussed between the three parties, the Republicans, the Democrats, and the White House.
Most important things, I think, is to continue unemployment for those individuals who have lost their jobs and have not been able to become reemployed. And then a small business, we need to have help for our small businesses. Every week, I either get a phone call or several phone calls or emails about small business owners that barely survived the first forced closure of their business and do not think that they can survive this next closure. I just received another one of them a few days ago, and I'm responding to those emails. But we absolutely need to have help for our small business owners, whether that's the payment protection program or a faster method of getting help to individuals. Also, continuing of unemployment benefits for those who are unemployed, I think, is important. And then, as I said, help for our local public health agencies so that they can continue to do testing, they can do tracing, they can continue to give guidance and information on people, what they should do if they have a positive test, and encourage them to go to a medical facility or provider should they have significant symptoms. So I think those things are very important in a COVID-19 package. And then also making sure that all of our institutions, be they nursing homes, be they hospitals, emergency rooms, clinics, that they have access to PPE, and making sure that we're continuing to have a supply chain so that there's not a shortage of that very necessary equipment.
The White House plan, though, it also includes a $600 payment to each American, but does not include a federal unemployment supplement. Does that worry you? I mean, because it sounds like you want the unemployment supplement. Is it important to get cash in the hands of every single American as well?
I think given that there are people currently who have not been employed, have not had a revenue stream coming in, and who were employed and working prior to the pandemic and the forced closure of their business, that I think both of those things are important. We know that we have a vaccine. We know it's going to be approved very soon. And hopefully after the vaccine, we'll be able to get back up to normal. So I think that those are part of the negotiations and part of the conversations that are being held now between both the Republicans, the Democrats, and the White House on, how extensive does it need to be? How long does it need to be? And that we know that we want to reopen our economy safely and get people back to work, because there's a dignity in work and a fulfillment in being able to work and provide for yourself and your family.
You did point out, of course, that you've been a lawmaker in Des Moines for the last few terms, and then you've seen a Republican majority there. You're moving into the House, which of course is a Democratic majority in Washington. Tell me about bipartisanship. I mean, in order for you to serve an area where you won just by 6 votes, you really have to be very bipartisan for the next 2 years.
Well, certainly Iowa's 2nd Congressional District is a swing district, or a purple district, as I had mentioned. But I'll tell you the same tactic I took in going in to the state Senate, and that was the golden rule. And I treat people how I want to be treated. I treat people with courtesy, with respect, with dignity. I make myself available to listen to them, to listen to their concerns. I may not always agree with them, but I think being able to have a conversation and a dialogue and a debate is critically important. As the chair of Human Services, we passed really terrific health policy legislation, and I was given the authority to do that and the go-ahead to do that by my caucus leaders and my leaderships. They said, if you're the doctor, if it makes good health policy sense, do it. And there's no one person that has good ideas. Good ideas come from all sides of the aisle. So I was fortunate to be able to take good ideas and to be able to pass them. So we passed legislation asking for a waiver for lawful permanent residents to get access to prenatal care. We passed legislation to end pre-authorization for smoking cessation treatment on Medicaid. We passed legislation to get transparency for pharmacy benefit managers so that we could lower prescription drug prices. We also passed legislation ending the pre-authorization for medication-assisted treatment for substance use disorder. So when people want to go into recovery, they can get the assistance and the guidance they need, and you're not overburdening the healthcare system and physicians and nurse practitioners by putting more barriers in the way from them to help people. And I think when you have that approach, and my approach was also that I may be in the majority now, but I'm going to be in the minority in the future if you stay in elected office long enough. So I think that that will continue to serve me well. I want to be where I can be the most help to both the people within my district, to my profession, to my party, and to our country. And I think that attitude will serve me very well in Congress, even though we'll be in the minority.
What committees do you hope to be assigned to?
Well, certainly as a former nurse and as a physician and former director of the Iowa Department of Public Health, and one who is very instrumental in passing broadband legislation, I'd like to be on Energy and Commerce, where healthcare, public health, and broadband communications are located. That's a very hard thing to achieve as an incoming member of Congress. So those other things that are important to our district would be agriculture, transportation, and infrastructure, especially with the locks and dams on the Mississippi and how important that is to our agricultural economy. Small business, armed services as a 24-year military veteran. It's an important committee to be on, and I'd be honored to be on it. And education and labor would be another committee I'd be interested in, because there is ERISA, which works on pensions and healthcare benefits. There are small businesses and franchises, and there's a lot of that within the 2nd Congressional District. But wherever I'm assigned, whatever committee I'm on, I know that I will do what I've always done my entire life, and that is I will be tireless. I will work hard. I will be an advocate for the constituents of our district and our state. And I will work every day to be able to continue to support Iowa and Iowans in whether it's jobs, whether it's national security, whether it's veterans benefits, whether it's our VA hospital, our healthcare research that goes on in our University of Iowa Hospital, that I will work tirelessly to be able to do my best for the constituents within the 2nd Congressional District, as well as Iowa as a whole.
And that kind of dovetails into my last question, because it is, what do you say to those who did not vote for you?
If you didn't vote for me, I am here. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to engage in conversation and discourse, and I'm willing to answer your addresses and address your concerns just as I would if you voted for me. I did that and met with individuals And there was some legislation I passed that they were very supportive of, and they may not have voted for me in this congressional race. But nonetheless, when you're elected to serve everybody within your district, and I plan to do precisely that.
Well, congratulations. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. You have a good day, and everybody get out for our last warm day because we're going to get snow.
So true, so true. Take care. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. You have a good day.